Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be talking about the severe weather threat that may bring in all hazards across parts of the lower Ohio Valley in the Tennessee Valley region. We're also watching another system later this weekend here that could bring some severe weather across parts of the plains and maybe even onto parts of Monday that move up to across parts of the Midwest. And then another big system comes in behind it. That might bring in a lot of snow across parts of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, even for the possibility for some severe weather across parts of the plains here as well. Pretty classic severe weather set could be coming up later next week. So we're going to get started with the SPC outlook here for today, and this is a little bit unexpected here. Not for the marginal risk, but the slight risk here they have out here. And so we have a slight risk for severe weather across parts of northeastern Alabama, northwestern Georgia, and parts of southern Tennessee as well. Meanwhile, we got a marginal risk from parts of south central Alabama, southwest central Georgia, that moves all the way up to parts of central western Kentucky and southern Indiana. If we check out the tornado risk, yes, there is a tornado risk out there, even a 5% chance across parts of northeastern Alabama, south central Tennessee, and northwestern Georgia. You also got that 2% risk really anywhere from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way down to parts of south central Georgia as well. Damage winds will be there. The hail threat will be focused more on the western side of the risk, more focused across parts of southwestern Kentucky, western Tennessee, even for a good chunk of Alabama as well, where we have a colder air aloft up there as well. This is all associated with a upper level low that'll be spinning across parts of Louisiana and Arkansas. They'll be moving north with time here. It's going to bring in quite a bit of moisture up here, so not only we have a severe weather risk, we even have some flood risk as well. I believe there's a moderate risk across some of these regions in here as well. I think it's for today. We may check that at the end of the video. Uh, but let's check out the current environment here, and we'll first check out satellite imagery here. And what we do have right now, we actually got a good cluster of thunderstorms in parts of central Tennessee. Those are moving to the north here. They'll cross into Kentucky in probably about an hour or two. And we do have a severe thunderstorm out there that does have a circulation out there as well. One of those storms, it is severe warned, but if you kind of look everywhere else, there's a lot of breaks in the clouds out here, and that's going to lead to a more destabilized atmosphere. You even got some breaks in the clouds across parts of Kentucky and eastern Tennessee as well. So this is definitely not a good sign if you don't want severe weather. You will want at least mostly cloudy skies or just cloudy skies in general. We actually have plenty of breaks in the clouds out there. If we check out the surface-based instability right now, there is quite a bit of instability out there. Check out Alabama with 2,500. That'd be favorable for some severe weather. Even for areas in the 1,000 in the 1,500 area, will still be favorable for some severe weather as well. So that goes all the way up to across most of Kentucky, uh, most of Tennessee, really generally everybody in the risk zone for severe weather is within that 1,000 plus threshold. So that's definitely not a good sign there. But if you check out the mid levels, it's not as bad. Um, you want to have, if you want severe weather, you want to at least have an improvement with the mid level. 1,000 joules per kilogram will be favorable, which unfortunately that's where those storms down here are going to. These storms down here, those are moving a little bit more to the north, heading into that 1,000 joules per kilogram threshold. But you do see here generally mostly everybody north is at least between 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram of Cape. Excuse me there. Then you check out Alabama, which we do have. Excuse me again. Um, where we do have a widespread area of 1,000 plus, even for parts a good chunk of northwestern Georgia as well, and with some isolated areas of 1,500 plus joules per kilogram as well. If you check out wind shear, there is some wind shear out there. The greatest wind shear is more focused further south, but a lot of this stuff here will be moving north with time as well, and also they will kind of decrease throughout the afternoon. Typically, wind shear is pretty high earlier in the day, and it's not the greatest in the middle of the day. So we'll see what happens here, how things go with that wind shear there. If we check out Story to Felicity, not a whole lot out there to talk about. You really just want 150 plus. We do not really see that out there right now. But even for 100 plus, which there is some isolated areas out there. Here's one nearby Louisville. There might be some other areas out there as well. But really, overall, there's not a whole lot of Story to Felicity out there. But even for 100, with the Story to Felicity, might just be just enough for some brief tornadoes out there as well. That'd be another threat to watch for. If you check out the supercell composite, really anybody in the 1 plus threshold has that at least a decently favorable environment here for some supercellular activity out there. You see the areas are more focused across parts of eastern Tennessee and most of Alabama and Georgia as well. Even extends to parts of South Carolina as well, but I don't really expect South Carolina to experience much of any severe weather today. And if you check out the significant tornado parameters, this is where you kind of see where your greatest tornado risk is going to be. There's kind of two ways to look at it. I believe this, well, I just click on there, is the effective layer. And it's a 0.5. It's a pretty low end risk, but really anybody in the 0.5 risk has a decently favorable environment here for maybe a brief or weak tornado or a weak tornado. That's what I meant to say right there. And another way to check it out, well, actually, that was the fixed layer. If we check out the effective layer, a little bit more detailed here, and you can see here, you kind of really kind of get the spots here where it may be favorable for any tornadic development out there. But then again, we still have to watch for some of those storms out there as well. Either way, it's favorable for some supercell activity out there as well. So let's check out the latest HER model here, and it's doing an okay job so far. It's not the best. Let me get a different color here on the pen. We'll make it go red. And you can see here, there's that cluster thunderstorm that's ongoing. Now, I think it's still going to keep on going. I don't think it's going to dissipate. But either way, it does show it dissipating, moving off to the northwest. It should start to make a northwestward turn here with its upper level lows out here. All these storms here are going around this low right here. That's where all these storms are going. So maybe across parts of Alabama and Georgia, some of these storms may be coming from a little bit more from the southwest. If you go to parts of Tennessee, it's from the south. And if you're in Kentucky, they're actually coming from the southeast as well. So they're kind of going counterclockwise there. As you check out going into the afternoon here, check these storms out here. You got scattered cells for parts of central Kentucky all the way down to parts of central Alabama here. These are the storms you need to pay attention to if you they may have the better opportunity to become a little bit more supercellular here. These little cells right here could try to become a little bit supercellular. And this is where we kind of have that tornado risk for right now. It's not really showing much of any storms down across parts of northwestern Georgia, but it has it more focused a little bit further west, at least the southern end of it. And these are the storms we need to pay attention to for any supercellular activity that may try to produce a brief or quick spin up tornado. And these will be isolated in nature. Despite having that 5% area, they'll be uh, isolated in nature. Then as you kind of go into the evening hours, then you kind of see some of these supercells kind of cluster up a little bit. And when that kind of happens, they can gain a little bit more intensity. You got a little bit of a couple of tense cells here and there as well. Some of those tense cells may be the ones that may have a better opportunity to produce a brief weak tornado. Not only that, but even for a chance for some very gusty winds as well. Maybe some small hail as well. And then as you kind of continue on to later in the evening, then it kind of becomes a big raining mass here, and then you kind of get into a flash flood threat as well. So that'll be another thing we have to watch for as well. And we're going to try to get this done quickly. I usually kind of like to check out the superset composite. That's where you kind of find some decent soundings out there. If you kind of go into 21Z here, so this is kind of getting the evening hours, you do see here, that shows some of the better environment here for supercells a little bit further south here. So we'll get a sounding out there and see what it kind of looks like out there. And that's actually a pretty good sounding out there. And keep in mind, these are isolated in nature. It's not widespread or anything like that. They're isolated to scattered in nature. And you see this is an isolated area here. And you do see that wind direction of height, though. That's definitely going to be very common to see here is that wind direction of height here. You also got this photograph is small, but it's still favorable for some brief tornadoes. Serrative Felicity here, the numbers are kind of going a little over the place, but still at least a little bit favorable for some tornadic activity. There will be some Cape out there. Downdraft Cape would be favorable for some damage winds as well, and also got some low lap rates as well. So this is not a bad sounding here for severe weather. If we go a little bit further up north, so let's go towards the Louisville area. And you kind of see here, it's not the greatest here sounding either. Um, the photograph is a little bit smaller. It's kind of a little ways away from the wind shear. The main batch of wind shear is a little bit further south, but the further north you go, the less wind shear there is. But you also do see some of that wind direction of height here as well. Oriented Felicity doesn't seem that favorable for any tornadic development as well. And however, it does seem there might be a low end risk for some gusty thunderstorms as well with those low lap rates as well. But as you kind of go later in the evening here, now you start to see some spots up in Kentucky here you kind of want to check out. So here's across parts of eastern Kentucky, and now that's where there's a little bit more wind shear to work with. So rate of Felicity here will be one of the main things you should probably check out when it comes to tornadic activity. Wind direction of height, a much better hodograph than the one at Louisville earlier in the day. Not too bad with the low lap rates. Even the 3 cape will be favorable for tornadic activity as well. And there's also some cape as well. But also do notice there's a little bit of cap near the surface, and that might be a little bit limiting factor as well. It's that cap towards the surface. But either way, it seems to be favorable for at least some gusty thunderstorms and maybe an isolated tornado, or at least a very brief one at least. There's another one out here. You kind of check this one out here. Even further west you go, the wind shear does decrease as well. With soaring relative helicity, it's not too bad. At least in the mid levels is actually all right, but in the low levels not so much. Um, you also got a decent hodograph as well. Low lap rate's a little bit on the weaker side though, and there's some cape out there as well. It's not too bad of a sounding either. But then as you kind of go into the overnight hours, you see the tornado risk kind of stays a little bit more focused across parts of Alabama and Georgia as well. So some decent soundings out there, but they're not the best though. Then again, like I said, these will be isolated in nature. If we check out the high-res NAM here, you do see here it doesn't show those cluster thunderstorms. So right off the bat, this is not a great model to use for when it comes to reflectivity, but it does show some of those supercellular activity from parts of Kentucky down to parts of Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. It does show some better storms up into parts of Kentucky into the overnight hours, which is interesting. We'll check out the supercell composite very quickly here, and then we'll move on to um, some of the bigger stuff here. So if you kind of check out the superset composite here, it's actually got a big area here across parts of northern Georgia here. It's got a big bullseye out there, which is very interesting there. But you do see here it could be favorable for supercells really anywhere from parts of Alabama, Georgia, to parts of Tennessee up into parts of Kentucky. As well, you could definitely notice that. We'll get a couple soundings here. That's actually a really good sounding right there, at least hodograph wise. Pretty favorable hodograph. Wind direction of height is kind of insane. Story to Felicity is also favorable. Damage wind side of things, I'll say it's okay, but it's also probably going to be a little bit overdone with the cape out there as well. It's got 2200 out there, which is quite a bit of cape, but even if it's verifies here, this would be favorable for at least for a couple supercells that may produce some gusty winds and maybe a brief tornado as well. And then we'll move up to parts of southern Kentucky, see what shows up there. And yeah, it shows a decent environment up there as well. Sorry to Felicity, it's kind of a little bit lower end on the scale here. But it does show some wind direction of height here. But keep in mind, the winds are not that strong when you kind of think about it there with that wind direction of height. If the winds were to be very strong, we could be talking about a big outbreak. But at this point here, we're not going to be talking about a big outbreak of tornadoes here with this setup here. You also got a small hodograph there again, and some decent cape out there as well. So not a complete garbage sounding either. But overall, across parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, even for parts of Alabama and Georgia, need to watch for this supercell threat over the next several hours here. And we already got a pretty good environment, decent environment out there that will be favorable for some supercells. We already have a rotating storm down in Tennessee, so this is definitely something we're going to watch here over the next several hours as well. So that's today out of the way. Let's look into tomorrow. Not really expecting anybody to really experience any severe weather. Day 3, there's a marginal risk across parts of the Dakotas and parts of northwest Minnesota. And then let's check out the 4 to 8 day outlook here. Potential too low on day 4. However, on day 5, though, we do have a 50% slight risk across parts of the eastern half of Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas, northeastern Texas, and far western Arkansas and far southwestern part of Missouri. If we move on day 6, it's predictably too low. However, this is when the big trough moves in on day 7. We also got another 15% slight risk across parts of southern Kansas, central Oklahoma, and to parts of northern Texas as well. And then on day 8, predictably too low at this time. So this is definitely going to be a pretty active period for some severe weather. As we kind of check out the European model here, you do notice here, again, with that upper level low, that could bring in some strong to severe thunderstorms across parts of the south. Now eventually move up to the north over time there. Eventually get kind of come back to the jet stream up there. And then as you kind of move on to Saturday here, you do notice here comes a low pressure system kind of moving on across parts of the northern plains. Not really expecting any severe weather out of that. And then you start to notice this here across parts of the southern plains here. You got a pretty strong low that moves on across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, even to parts of Kansas as well. This is kind of the peak time heating hours here on Sunday here. You will start to notice here some thunderstorms will try to develop across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas as well. Pretty classic severe weather setup for those folks down there, especially with such a strong low as well. 997 millibars is actually that's actually a decently strong low for those areas there as well. So that could definitely lead to some severe weather down there, which will include all hazards. So hail, damaged winds, and maybe some isolated tornadoes as well. We're not going to get too specific on things since we're still pretty far out from this event here. And then on the next day here, it moves up to the northeast here, and then the severe weather risk may be focused more across parts of the Midwest as well. But then here comes the big one right here. This big trough that moves in. You actually got heavy snow across parts of Wyoming and Utah. And you can see here how that kind of digs pretty far to the south here. And then this is when things get very interesting. You got a strong low that comes off the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and New Mexico. You'll start to see this thing move to the north here. And watch what happens here as you move into Wednesday. Check this out here. So this is 18Z on Wednesday, so this is in the afternoon hours. You got very heavy snow on the backside there, possibly near blizzard conditions on the backside of that low. Meanwhile, in the warm sector, you got some strong to severe thunderstorms. Some of those could be supercells out there that may produce all hazards. Really from parts of central Texas all the way up to parts of Nebraska. So it's going to be a large region here we need to keep an eye on. And then as you kind of move to later in the day here, those storms eventually move to the northeast, and the threat might move up to parts of South Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, maybe into parts of Minnesota, pretty far north to see that. And eventually on Thursday here, the load starts to die down and it moves off to the northeast here It doesn't look like we'll be expecting severe weather on for next Thursday. Let's kind of check out the 500 millibar winds though for the European model, and then again you do see that very classic cutoff low over Arkansas there. As we move into Sunday, here comes this low right here over the Texas Panhandle. And you can see here this low here will continue to move off to the northeast here. So here's 10 o'clock here. Might try to become a little bit negative tilt here, but it's a little bit more of a positive tilt trough at this point here. But it looks like it may try to become negatively tilt here. But really areas in this area right into here, we had to focus on that risk for some severe weather. So really anywhere from central Texas up into parts of Kansas. Let's back up a little bit of time. Let's go back to 6 o'clock here, which is peak time heating. But let's check out the Cape out there. And here's the European model doesn't show a whole lot of Cape out there. If that's going to be the case there, then the severe weather may be a little bit more isolated out there. If you move on to 9 o'clock here, it starts to become a little bit more widespread. But there's still not a whole lot of Cape out there, which is kind of interesting there that doesn't show a whole lot of Cape. But then you go to the overnight hours. Boy, that Cape really starts to kick in there. And there might be a chance if there's a cap there. And what that means is that you get a warm air aloft up there into parts of the atmosphere, and that prevents from storms to form. So there might be a chance that a cap might be in place out there. So that's something we need to pay attention to as well. It's that potential for a cap. Then as we move on to 6 o'clock on Monday, the severe weather risk again moves off to the northeast there. Across parts of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, maybe into parts of Wisconsin as well, that severe weather risk. And then that cold front is not really successful going down to the Gulf of Mexico here. So a lot of this moisture and visibility is still going to be stuck around to parts of Texas. And that's going to lead to the next system out here. So then as we move to 6 o'clock on Tuesday, then all that instability that gets stuck down in Texas moves up to the north here. And you do notice here by 6 o'clock on Tuesday, oh boy, check out all that Cape out there. Even some places up to close to 2,500 Cape, which is pretty favorable for some severe weather for this time of year. Even for 1,000 plus joules per kilogram Cape, which is over a pretty large area, could see the risk for some severe weather as well. We could check out the jet stream out here. Check this out here. You got a very deep trough moving in across parts of the four corner states with a low pressure system coming off the Rocky Mountains of New Mexico and Colorado. That's going to move off to the north. Then as we move to 10 o'clock here, boy, then winds will start to kick in over the plains here. If we check out the low of a jet, which is at 850 millibars, it's pretty strong. And that's definitely not good news if you do not want severe weather. A strong low of a jet is not good news. That could definitely lead to some supercellular activity, and you can also get damaged winds and also isolated tornadoes as well with a very strong low of a jet. That's going to be pretty impressive out there. But keep in mind, this is about a week out, so some things can change on this. Just keep in mind of that. Some things can change, but so far models have not really changed all that much with the setup here. And then as you kind of get into parts of the overnight hours, boy, that Cape gets close to the 3,000 marks. That's pretty impressive here. And the severe weather threat may continue to the overnight hours as well. If you check out the precipitation here, you do have some heavy thunderstorms out there as well, which some of those could be some supercells, really anywhere from parts of Texas all the way up to parts of Nebraska and Iowa. It's where we could see some of that severe weather. Meanwhile, on the backside, you got heavy snow on the backside there. And then kind of going back to the low of a jet, so here's 6 o'clock here on Wednesday. Your severe weather risk moves a little bit further up to the northeast, and that's just a very impressive low of a jet there. I mean, low of a jet with winds of 73 miles per hour, that's pretty impressive there. But here's your surface-based wind gusts. Check out the backside of that. Now, the European model does typically a little bit overdone with the winds at the surface, but check out these winds on the backside there. 75 mile per hour wind gusts. And if you check out sustained winds at the surface here, you do have blizzard conditions on the backside there. You do. If you kind of putting on top of that with the snow, yeah, that's blizzard conditions on the backside area. Even trying to hit on some thunder snow as well over Rapid City, South Dakota as well. So this could be a very impressive storm here. And if we check out snowfall totals from the European model, check out these snowfall totals. Very impressive here. Um, might be a little bit overkill, but almost to 4 feet of snow in some places. That's pretty ridiculous there. I'm not gonna lie there. But then let's check out the GFS model here. We'll kind of go backtrack a little bit, going back to Sunday's threat here. You do, as you can see here with Sunday's threat, you do have some thunderstorms going on across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, even to parts of Arkansas. You also do notice here it's a weaker low as well, 1,001 millibars, but still a little bit favorable for some severe weather as well, despite it being a weaker low. It does try to deepen a little bit, but you also do notice here as we move to Monday here, the severe weather risk is a little bit further to the southeast, a little bit more focused across parts of Illinois, Missouri, maybe to parts of Indiana and Kentucky as well. So there's still some uncertainty with the placement there for Monday as well. And then again, here comes the big trough right here with a pressure 987 millibars up here. It's also a little bit further north with the low pressure system than the European model, which is very interesting here. Meanwhile, at the same time here, you got severe weather across parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, as well, maybe to extending to parts of Texas as well, and possibly near blizzard conditions on the back side of the system here. Here's Wednesday here. Doesn't really move all that much here. Seems like the European model may be a little bit more progressive than the GFS. You got this, looks to be maybe a dry line, maybe a cold front that goes from parts of South Dakota all the way down to the Mexico border. And you may have some strong to severe storms along that cold front, and some of those could be supercells as well. And you can see here some of those supercell activity may move into parts of Iowa, Missouri, maybe into parts of Minnesota as well, getting later into the overnight hours. That might be a little more of a damage wind event at that point, but we'll see what happens here. This is definitely going to be a very interesting system here to watch here. So you got a combo of severe weather, possibly blizzard conditions, and also a high wind event as well down towards the surface here. Even without thunderstorms or snow or anything, you guys could still see some strong winds near or at the surface here. So if we check out the GFS model here at 500 millibars, very similar to the European model here. If we kind of check out the low of a jet here, which we didn't really check out with the GF or the European model, it's not too bad out there. The low of a jet's not really all overall strong or anything, but it does look like it really does pick up as you get into Sunday evening across parts of Oklahoma here. Underneath that strong low of a jet, you do have some instability. So that'll be favorable for some severe weather across parts of eastern Oklahoma and even to parts of Texas as well. And then as you move on to Monday, not a whole lot of instability to work with. This is an older run, by the way. So this is the 6Z run. But it does show some instability across parts of Illinois and Indiana, but it's not really that strong, though. It's not very strong. However, there is a good level jet out there across parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee. But then again, there's still some uncertainties with that setup there as well. Yesterday, models actually showed a negative tilt trough, which actually the GFS on this run here actually shows a negative tilt trough out here. So that would definitely be something to watch here as well. That could lead to some severe weather. We'll keep it on Monday, Sunday, and Monday very closely there as well. Then at the same time here comes your big trough moving in across parts of the western United States as well. Change the color there real quick. And as you move on to Tuesday evening, then you kind of start to see this big bowling ball type of trough here, and these can cause some big trouble when it comes to severe weather. When you have a bowling ball trough like that, lots of divergence going on out here, so that's going to lead to some lift for some of these thunderstorms here out in the plains. If we check out the instability, you do see here there is plenty of instability out there for Tuesday evening, so there'll be a risk for some severe weather Tuesday evening across parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And if we check out the low of a jet at the same time here, yes, there is a pretty good low of a jet out there as well. Then as we move into Wednesday evening, the low of a jet is much stronger than on Tuesday's setup, and it's also moved further up to the north here. If we check out instability here, one good side about from the GFS model here is that there is not a whole lot of stability out there as well, but there can still be a good line of thunderstorms as well along that front there. Keep in mind of that. Even moving on to 9 o'clock here, you do see some thunderstorms along that front as well. If you kind of check out the surface winds here, back behind this low here where there could be some snow, let's actually back this up a little bit to 8 o'clock here. It's not as strong there. We'll see where the snow is. So the snow is actually back off a little bit further off to the west here, more focused across parts of southwestern Montana, western Wyoming. So we kind of move on later in the day here. Some of the heaviest snow might be around the Billings, Montana area. If we check out those sustained winds out there, it's not very strong there. But if you check out surface-based wind gust, yeah, might be getting close there. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. Wind gusts close to 40 miles per hour. That is close to blizzard conditions out here. Meanwhile, in the worm sector, you got winds blasting from the southeast, 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts, which could do some damage out there, even without thunderstorms as well. So, and we'll check out the snowfall totals from the GFS model here for the next 10 days. You do see here where a lot of snow could be. So a little bit further west than the European model, still a little bit battle here, but then keep in mind we're still 10 days out from the event, so a lot of things could change. But this is definitely something we need to watch here very closely here over the next several days. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button if you really like my channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, in the comment section down below. Alright, you guys questions, and I see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.